Guilty Gear Strive got a major revision this month, with both massive changes to the system mechanics of the game and the character balance of the game. And in this video, I'm not only going to go over what happened to my main, Baiken, but I'm also going to try to explain and clear up why the player base is kind of confused and a little upset with the character balance. But I'm also here to explain that it is okay. It's fine, actually. But before we look at the changes, we have to look at what type of character Baiken is. Baiken is an all-around type character with an emphasis on mid-range and defense. She typically uses attacks like her top of class Far Slash to threaten in the mid-range, and then control space around that range using attacks like JS and ID back to Tommy to retreat and hold the line. When she wants to preempt, she can control a large area in front of her using moves like 2S, 2H, or the most safe of the group, H Kabari, a long chain that slightly vacuums the opponent. For her defense, she has her parry, Hiragi. This move is active for 10 frames and it beats basically anything that is a physical attack, including attacks that you would be surprised to find out are actually physical attacks. So if the opponent is close, she will actually slam the opponent down and do some damage. If the opponent is further away, they'll be stunned. And she can cancel this into a dash to continue her offense. For the sake of ease, I call this animation the close parry or the parry catch, and this the far parry. Uniquely, she also has the ability to do this from block stun. So if I do anything else here, I just cannot like reverse at all. Even if I do like reversal super and I can't do it. But in Season 4, she got the ability to do her parry from block stun, and it causes the far parry animation. She's actually able to mitigate a variety of offensive situations, and it rewards the Baiken player for both being able to take a risk and having knowledge on how the other characters function. At the highest level, Baiken can control the pace and make opponents uncertain of whether or not they can even attack her. When she gets the right hits, she can go into a variety of strong mix-ups as well, making her offensive state a force to be reckoned with. This video is sponsored by Marvel Contest of Champions. Marvel Contest of Champions is a high-fidelity, arcade-style fighting game available on mobile and PC that you can download right now using my link in the description below or the QR code on screen. I actually played this game some last year and was surprised at how much fighting game experience carries over to this game. It's pretty easy to pick up and has a mix of fighting game elements along with character collection and customization. They are both aspects of RPGs and fighting games in Marvel Contest of Champions. You can both build up your character, but you can also take advantage of movement in a surprising way, like being able to approach from really far or even precisely dodge attacks. You can also straight up play the game multiple ways. You can play alone in epic quests or join an alliance in Alliance Wars. There are over 350 superheroes and villains, so surely you can't say the roster is too small, right? I'm a bit more of a casual fan, but it was fun to play as some of my favorites quickly, like Black Panther and Black Widow. If you use my link, you can claim a Heavy Hitters bundle that includes 10 champions for free, including Hercules, The Thing, Shang-Chi, and Iron Fist. You can only get this bundle until May 6th, so make sure to use the link below or the QR code on screen to scoop the game. And thank you to Marvel Contest of Champions for sponsoring this video. So I want to start by looking at Baiken's buffs. And for starters, funny enough, basically every crouching button that Baiken has been improved. So first off, her 2P. Formerly not one of the worst moves in the game, though you can watch a video about that if you want, but a forgotten one for sure. This move has always been the same speed as her 2K. The problem with this move was that it was not low, it was a mid, and it had the same block stun as her standing jab with the same frame data on block. So these moves are both -2 on block. So there was basically almost no reason to ever press this button above her standing jab or her 2K. Standing jab was, and well, still is, faster, and 2K has more hit stun, plus the option to cancel into sweep or cancel into 6K. So they did not actually improve the speed of 2P. So while they did not buff the startup of this move, the description of increasing the recovery and increasing the attack level might sound odd if you're not used to some of the more specific definitions on how moves work in this game. So the main way we're actually going to look at this improvement is not actually via the attack itself, it's through actually her standing jab. So Her standing jab has the lowest amount of block stun and hit stun for a move in the game. And as it's a fast move, it is generally her fastest attack to use in scrambles. Since it's 5 frames, you can't be thrown out of it, where if you press a 6 frame button like 2K or the 2P that we're talking about, you can be thrown because you'll be out of throw protection, as the throw protection in the game is for 5 frames. So when you're learning fighting games and you're learning how to hit confirm, people will generally give you a string that could be sometimes as much as 3 hits. So maybe something like this, Baiken's 2K into sweep. So when you're trying to hit confirm with this move on defense, you're generally going to press it a couple of times if you played fighting games for a while. So I mean, like, jab, jab, 6K. Cool. But sometimes your opponent might be too far for you to actually get a combo off this. And this is a very common complaint of Baiken players. Essentially, if the opponent was too far when you use jab, your combo options would be pretty poor. 6K is the main one because it travels so far, but it has travel time, so it might not actually combo. So with the increase of the attack level of 2P, it makes it much more likely that she can confirm into her 6K. It's pretty hard to make it not combo, and this means she can convert defensive hits into offensive situations. Next we have 2S, an 11 frame mid poke. This is another move that it's not forgotten like 2P, but some Baiken players would call this one of the worst moves in the game. I wouldn't personally agree with this though. So the thing is, 2S fits really snugly in between far slash and 2H. What I mean is there's a range where far slash whiffs and 2H connects, but 2S is probably your fastest mid-range tool. Now, 2H is the biggest out of her crouching attacks, but this move is slow. Quite slow actually at 17 frames. Her 2H is a low profile, but it doesn't actually begin until the active frames of the move. It's been like this for a while. Now, far slash is an amazing normal. Don't get it twisted. But 2S is bigger. The thing about far slash is that if they backdash it, you generally can't get a combo unless you spend meter to convert. 2S fulfills this gap very nicely. Now, 2S is a solid counter poke as well. And while you won't hit people walking back because it's a mid, it is nice for people who are trying to stay out of far slash range. So 2S is not a bad move. It just has like 2 problems. One is kind of not a problem, and the other one is a pretty legitimate problem. Now, the first thing, which is kind of not a problem, is what I kind of mentioned before. The move is not a blow, so people can just walk away from it. It's not that big of a deal, truthfully. Really, the big issue comes from an issue that Baiken has had for a while now in this game. Baiken is not the only character that's had this problem in this game, but she has, for a very long time, had problems converting her slash hits into meaningful combos. As far as cancel options, her main ways of converting that other characters would probably use either don't reach, like Tatami, or they're too slow in that context, like 2H, or H Kabari. So this means that she has had to generally score a counter hit in order to convert her slash buttons. And this applied to both of them. Now, in Season 4, they buffed both her far slash and her 5H to help with this. So they both reduce the knockback off her far slash so that they don't go as far when you hit it. And they added a ground bounce to 5H, making this happen more commonly, but still having opportunities for it to miss. But this is kind of okay, and a lot of characters have this type of thing too. So take this versus this. Usually other characters could do a special move to fix this. And there was previously Wild Assault, and a lot of characters had the red Wild Assault, the one you would use for combos, so they would use that as well. So in Stripe 2.0, they went further by improving this move, which I find to be a really good balance between giving her something she's really needed and also a theme that I've noted with a lot of the changes that I tend to make in this game of improving things that people don't use a lot. They increased the attack level of this move as well, and this does a bunch of things. Now, unlike her 2P, the 2S does not have additional recovery, so it is better on block at -5, where it used to be -8. Just it being safer makes it easier to threaten at mid-range, and it makes it so she doesn't have to cancel, and she might be able to cover things that she would not be able to cover as easily before. And this is extra felt with the loss of Wild Assault. So the improvement on this frame data is much appreciated. Now, the next big improvement to this move is because of the attack level increase, it is now able to combo into 2H on standing. She's never really had a way to do this on standing opponents off her slash buttons. So normally, if you take her forward slash does not combo into 2H unless the opponent is either crouching or you score a counter hit. We'll put an image of the attack level chart, but not only do I have a video on this, a pretty old one actually from when the game came out, but the summary of it is that all attacks in this game have set block stun, hit stun, and hit stop values based on this attack level system. So because the forward slash and 2S were attack level 2 and her 2H was 17 frames, she did not have enough hit stun to convert these hits into 2H on normal hit. So the increase makes it so that it's possible. Now, the final change they made to 2S is that there is reduced pushback on her 2S. It looks pretty far still, but it's definitely more now. But like the far slash change, it's also to help with both combo ability and positioning in rushdown. And finally, for normals, we're going to talk about her 2H. Now, this normal has both buffs and nerfs on it, but we're in the buffs section, so we're going to start there. So Baiken's 2H now causes a hard knockdown on grounded hit, and this gives her enough time to do a few things. So you could either just straight up meaty, or you can do a safe jump, or you can do a tatami to meaty them. You can do a bunch of stuff. So this change mainly works with her 2S buff, making it so that she can get meaningful punishes on attacks she really struggled to punish before. So for example, in Baiken vs. Axel has this move Snail that he uses as a string ender. And this move is like minus 20 or more. I want to say it's like minus 23 off the top of my head. And I am not going to lie to you, before, at this range, if she didn't have meter, this is your best punish. It was incredibly difficult to punish this move in a meaningful way before without resource. You might be like, why not just press a button after? But her 5H whiffs, and it's not a counter hit. So her 2H is not going to combo in this situation. Thanks to the 2S buff, she's able to effectively get a hard knockdown and mount offense. And there's a bunch of other moves like this in the game. The other buff they made to this move is kind of a weird one, but she was actually one of the first characters to get this, which is the proximity requirement on her 2H. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know why they added this, and this thing has been a problem for her for a long time, and they have been buffing 2H over and over to kind of make up for this basically big nerf they gave to her, like back in season 2 or 2.5 or something. Essentially, they have a thing of you have to like reach a certain spot, so even if the move is like on you, it won't connect. But they extended it so that now basically if you make contact, it will make contact. And I do feel this. There are some ranges, probably like around here, where this might not connect in the previous version of the game. Okay, so next, special move buffs. So her 2 chains, so heavy slash and slash kabari, both receive some buffs. So S kabari got a pretty simple buff. It got another plus frame to the move. So to be honest, Baiken players really like memeing about this move. Me too. We're just like, man, big patch coming. I wonder what impactful changes they'll make to make Baiken a more viable character in the tournament meta of Guilty Gear Strive. And somehow they just keep picking whatever we give them an extra frame of advantage every year. So now it's up to +4 from +3. Now, memes aside, the main reason why it's +4 now is because there are no more 4-frame normals in the game, and Baiken had one. So this change is to help compensate for that, because if they didn't make this +4, if they left it at +3 but made her standing jab 5 frames, then throw would be extremely difficult to deal with here, because the rope pulls you point blank all the time, and she just doesn't have anything else. So you'd have to take a pretty big risk. You'd have to like backdash or like jump or do Yozan-sen. Like you'd have to take a risk every time you do this attack, despite having some advantage. The extra frame of advantage though means you can convert it into close slash now on standing hit, which she could not before. Previously they had to be crouching to do it. So it's a pretty significant buff because, okay, it's close slash, but a while ago, I want to say before around season 4, they changed this so that it had more scaling. So earlier in the game's life, using S Kabari after Red RC was like the best. It had like no scaling. It was really good for combos. And then you started seeing people use it less and less in combos because doing this greatly scaled your combo. So if you hit this, you had to do jab on standing. and it just didn't do a lot of damage, nor did you have a lot of flexibility, considering how it's kind of risky to poke with this move in a lot of matchups. By giving her the ability to combo to close slash, you get much more return off this move. Her other chain, the H Kabari, got 2 important buffs, one for the first hit and one for the second. So the startup of the first hit was increased by 2 frames, and this is a pretty appreciated buff because it helps with combos a lot. So there are rare situations where you can convert off attack level 2 moves, and we're going to use this terminology a little bit more, right? So things like 6P and far slash, you do have to be kind of close, but it is pretty nice for mashing 6P point blank if you don't want to do tatami, as the spacing can be a little bit funky for tatami, but H Kabari might actually combo. Baiken's front foot on this tile is the line. This might seem incredibly close, but you'd be surprised to find out this does not combo, where this does. It's a small improvement, but these type of situations do come up occasionally. It can also convert off 2S, and because 2S has more hit stun, you can do this from not super far, but a pretty decent range. Her pressure is also different due to the speed increase, because since this has 13 frames block stun, now there's a 3 frame gap here. Her pressure is also different too, because the gap between her slash buttons and this move is going to be smaller. This move does have to travel to opponents, so it is going to depend a little bit, but for example, now opponents can't jump out of H Kabari at a certain range. And of course 2S, again, because it has more block stun, it happens from further. Also, thanks to the speed increase, you can now combo the H Kabari off 2D. This seems to be not super useful, but it is pretty nice because if someone faultless defense against 2D, you don't really have any options. And if you cancel the tatami, a lot of characters could actually just swing and hit you, even if you cancel it right away. So H Kabari really helps here. For combos, thanks to the speed increase of the first hit, plus the reduced horizontal knockback of the second hit, she now has opportunities to either get multiple of the initial H Kabari hit in one combo, or get multiple hits of the follow-up in one combo, especially mid-screen. The second one especially is a pretty big deal, even though it's a little hard to do. One thing I find, and I actually don't normally do this in videos, this is the training mode menu. We usually just cut out anything with the training mode menu, but while I've been looking at what people have been posting about the character, I highly recommend people go to gauge settings and set Baiken's tension gauge to either 0 or to 50 when you're practicing combos with her, because a really big thing about this version is how much meter she builds because of these 2 changes. Usually you require something like a counter hit, but even the now nerfed starter of 2H, which we will cover later, you get this combo, which builds you very, very close to 50 meter, basically 45 meter. Even if you're a bit further, you're able to perform the combo by dashing and doing a 5k to make sure you get the right distance. Outside of counter hits, you also get this combo of certain things like hitting stray backdashes or stray air hits. Now, repping the second hit in a combo can definitely feel pretty awkward. It's probably the thing I've been asked about the most, both on stream and anytime I post a clip of it on Twitter. And it takes some practice and like recognition to recognize what type of hit that you actually get with it. You can actually do this route off a lot of hits like far slash, but essentially your goal is to hit with H Kabari 2 like this. That's how you follow up with close slash. So reliably, if we're talking about realistically in matches, you're only getting close slash follow-ups if you're hitting like a big counter hit, something like 2H or 5H. Off hits like far slash, you basically can't freestyle into it, but the good news is you don't have to go into close slash off all these hits. You can choose to go into things like an IED safe jump, or if you recognize a repeating hit like hitting a backdash, you have the ability to combo with 2S instead. So that's it for the buffs. Now let's get sad together and look at how the devs continue to find a way to nerf a character that has not been top tier a single time in this game. So I did lightly touch on these in the buff section, but we're going to be revisiting a bunch of the moves I talked about because a lot of these attacks also have nerfs along with buffs. But we're going to start with universal changes. And the first one is going to be with Baiken 6P. So this is another normal that I might sound like I'm repeating myself a lot, but many Baiken players consider her 6P to be a pretty bad move. I personally, and again, sounds like I'm repeating myself, thought this move was aight. And the main reason why a lot of Baiken players think this move is not good is because it's just not very big. But I don't think the size was really the problem, personally. If there's a legitimate reason why this move could be considered to be a bad move, it would really be in how she couldn't get combos in situations where she didn't counter hit you with the move. Sounds specific, but happens a lot more than you would think. For example, we have Sin Kisk here. You know, I still think it's Kiske, but hey, anyway. And a relatively good starting point for Sin counterplay is interrupting this string, / into Beak Driver. There is actually a gap here, and you can interrupt the Beak Driver at 6P. But the problem is, if Baiken 6Ps this, she can't really do anything without meter. Tatami, as you saw before, there's no way it's going to reach from here. And while H comedy will reach sometimes, even if it did, it wouldn't combo. Even the RC wave might not reach, so your main option would be to do gun. And it's not very easy to combo out of it in this context. So unlike a lot of other characters, it was honestly pretty hard to make him feel this mistake. That is until they gave her this. Now on the bright side though, in previous versions of the game, the move had very fast upper body involves, so she could use her 6P to interrupt strings that other characters could not interrupt, like this Leo example we're showing here. The standardization in her case is a nerf, as it will now lose to more things that she used to beat. Then her jab, which I mentioned in the S comedy buff section, has been nerfed to 5 frames. Every single character with a 4-frame normal still in Season 4 has been nerfed to 5 frames, so just fast enough that you can still mash out of throw protection. But losing the 4-frame is a pretty decent nerf, especially with the buff to her 2P. Because the thing is, the advantage of having a 4-frame was less about the speed of the move itself and more about what you could actually punish with it, which I know sounds weird, but what I mean is it was less about, oh, when you mash on defense, you're doing something that's slightly faster, and it was a lot more that, oh, characters couldn't do specific things to you without you getting a guaranteed punish that not all characters could. While characters like Geo and Baiken often could not convert their 5P punishes unless they were deep in the opponent's grill, or they had meter. Famously, characters like Milia and especially Aba can convert their 4-frame punishes into knockdowns pretty consistently. The final nerf that she has in common with the rest of the cast involve one of her highs and one of her lows, Yozansen and 2H. Now, Yozansen is an extremely flexible move. She only has like 5 special moves in this game, but a lot of them have many uses, and Yozansen is one of them. Offensively, the move is both the high in her high-low, but it can also act as a cross-up as well. In the case of the left-right mix-up, you get a combo on either side. Although generally, I personally exclusively used it as a cross-up option. So, like many other characters in the game, the scaling has been increased, which does not just lead into less damage, but also there are positionings where you can't even do the same combos as you would in the previous patch, which means she has to alter a bunch of not just combo routes, but also sequencing. Now, 2H got the extreme scaling nerf that low-profile lunging moves got, like Stun Dipper or Stroke the Big Tree. And I'm not gonna lie, if they didn't nerf literally every other move that's like this, I would have gotten really mad about this, because in my opinion, her 2H is the worst out of all of these in the game. She's competing with moves, again, like Stun Dipper, like Stroke the Big Tree, also like Maze 3K, which were all like amazing starters and very practical and varying degrees of safety depending on context. But specifically, it's a callback to what I was talking about before, where she doesn't actually low profile until she would hit you. You'd have to do this move really early in order to actually go under pokes. Now, thankfully, they did give her the hard knockdown, so you do get to set up offense, or you get a big combo if it's a starter, but it is much harder to combo if you use it like deep in a combo. The scaling does affect her combos, and there's certain routes that she used to be able to do that she cannot anymore. Then we have nerfs to her special moves. So first, Escabri got a change. And this move is now easier to 6p than before because the hitbox is revised. This one is a weird situation for me though, because what happens pretty often is that if someone is actually reacting to this, their 6p will probably whiff, which means Baiken actually has quite a bit of advantage. So depending on the 6p that someone uses, you might actually get a punish where you would not be able to before. And okay, so now that's Escabri. The next change I'm going to talk about is essentially the single change that really made Baiken players generally upset. If you were paying attention during the video, you already saw the change. Actually, you saw it quite a bit, but I'm actually going to break this down a little bit more. Many Baiken players consider this to be one of the biggest nerfs they've ever given to the character, which to me is kind of funny because she's gotten some pretty insane nerfs over this game's lifespan, considering that their characters, like, a character just got banned from a lot of tournaments. That's for another video. Honestly, the next video is going to be about that. But despite that, she has gotten some pretty big nerfs despite never really affecting the tournament meta at all. And this single change is the one that affects her play the most in the short term. And yes, it is about Escabri 2 and how it's a soft knockdown instead of a hard knockdown. This change does a bunch of stuff to the character. So for starters, we're on the character select screen. Baiken is a 5-star ease of use character. She actually is pretty hard to use at high level, but a lot of the stuff that I talk about or I complain about or matchups I complain about, they don't really affect almost any other level of play besides like tournament play, like really deep in tournament play. But the change for Escabri 2 really complicates her routing now. The change is still relatively new, so not only do people not know how to actually like do it properly, which I tried to explain a little bit earlier in the video of how like it works and where you should assume that you can kind of go for it, but also in the heat of a match, they never know if they're actually getting the most out of the hit that they're getting, because it's hard to tell unless you've repped it and like you just look at it a lot of when can you actually try to get something. And personally, I don't like try to freestyle the route a lot because it is actually pretty finicky unless you get pretty specific hits. Now, the second issue with the change is that it makes offense more difficult at all levels. At lower levels of play, the offense off this hard knockdown was mostly focused around doing a knockdown with the second hit of Escabri and using ID4 Tatami for offense, but as time went on and more got developed, she actually had a ton of tactics she could use off this knockdown. Tatami mats with tricky frame kills, very sneaky left rights, and more. So basically, with this nerf, if a player is not good at recognizing that the first hit of Escabri is faster and that the second hit of Escabri has less pushback, so that there are more opportunities to kind of loop this combo and build a bunch of meter, then Baiken's gonna feel like a lot weaker or even like clumsy in this version. And if they change to 2H, this also means that she has no way to get a hard knockdown off air hits in this version. Really, the only way you can do it is by using red roaming cancel and letting them fall, or comboing into something like gun, which hard knockdown, or her sword super, which also hard knockdown. And pretty much nobody uses these moves or uses resource like that. So basically, she just doesn't have a way to do this. Also, remember when I said that 2H and Yozan-sen were the main scaling nerfs that she received in this patch? I do have to admit, I lied about that. My bad. There is one more nerf that she got. As a change to this move, Hiragi, one of her most changed moves in her time in this game. Meterless reversals like this are not common in the game, but everyone else has got nerfed. And as a quick reminder, this move has 3 versions technically, right? So first you would have the close parry that has the cinematic, aka the catch. So this has a couple of nerfs. It does way less damage. So on launch, this did like 160 and then they nerfed it to 100 and now it's down to 60. A pretty dramatic drop. And she's had the 100 damage parry for, I want to say like maybe like 2 years. Less damage is less damage, but this also means that using parry at the end of someone's life bar, the risk reward is a little different because they're not going to die in spots where you think. So it will legitimately not kill here, where in the previous patch it definitely would. Like other reversals too, this move has increased recovery, but not as much as the others. Meter's reversals tended to be around -28 on block, and now they're way more punishable than before. The thing is, Baiken's is not a physical attack. She just kind of like stands there until someone swings into her. So while it does have more recovery, it doesn't have that much. Numbers wise, the previous parry was like whiffing a really good far slash, so there's often times where people couldn't punish it in some spots, especially if they were far away from you for some reason. So now it makes it that if you do it after a situation like this, then they will definitely unquestionably punish you. And if you do it from like somewhere like here, you might not be able to move right away. You might have to hold your ground. As usual too, there was a note on this move that might sound odd if you don't play the character. But the last note there was just to let you know that if you do a far parry or guard cancel, it will have the previous frame data, the frame data from season 4.1 and prior seasons, instead of the new additional recovery that they added to this game. Okay, that was quite a bit of changes, but this was a pretty big patch. So what does this mean for Baiken? Well, she is much better at building meter from counter hits in neutral and in ad-lib situations like the previously mentioned backdash catch or weird air hits that you might get. Baiken has a powerful, direct, high-low game with 50 meter, so this being accessible quickly is pretty good. Rarely used moves like 2P and 2S have way more use cases, and H-Comedy being sped up to 16 frames makes it both a more effective neutral tool, but also a powerful combo tool combined with the H-Comedy 2 buff. These combined changes make her mid-range game somewhat more threatening. Defensively, she converts better than before, but once again, she got hit by a reversal stray. Now, her guard cancel is unchanged, so I think that's their way to try to encourage more players to use it, rather than changing it in some way. Normally, they would do some drastic things, like raising the block stun and hit stun of attacks that nobody uses. Might sound familiar if you watch the entire video, in order to get players to use more of a character's toolkit. But guard cancel is a uniquely strong concept on paper. Something like being able to attack out of block stun being easier is probably something people don't like already, and I'm sure they don't want to see something like that being improved. I don't think people would be very happy to hear that her guard cancel got buffed. She got a lot of universal strays, as she always does, but they're basically fine. I don't think it's as insulting as the parry nerf back in season 3.2. The main challenge of this version is definitely rerouting her, because not only did the H-Comedy 2 knockdown enable a bunch of offense, but it was also a really good, hey, I don't know what to do in this combo, I can just go into this. And this is the second time they've removed something like that from her. The first time was back in season 3 when they nerfed Yozan-sen so that it sends you like far away, like full screen. Now, if you've played Baiken exclusively for a long time, the H-Comedy 2 knockdown probably feels really unfair, but she is far from the only character that has had all her hard knockdowns removed. Leo, for example, has had Turbulence hard knockdown, HDP hard knockdown, and if you weren't playing at the beginning, Zwite used to also be a hard knockdown. And these were all removed in addition to his 2D being nerfed multiple times. And he's still crazy good. Like in this patch, he's probably top 5 and improved from last patch actually. Has Leo always been better than Baiken in this game? Yes, but this is really just me saying that it's chill and people will come up with new strategies and tactics despite the change. But speaking from the heart, it does kind of annoy me that like they do stuff with top tiers and they nerf them, they take it away from them, and they go, oh yeah, Baiken has like a bad version of this, so we should take that away too. That does kind of piss me off. This is like, I can't even count how many times this has happened at this point. Probably not more than 10 times to be honest, but it's fine, I guess. Right. However, the main thing is that I think she still has some kind of like forgotten and pretty niche tools that I would like to see them improved. But the main thing that I like about this patch is that it makes her core kind of mid-range game a lot more stable, it feels like. I can say, for example, that one product of these changes means you will see a lot less forward air dash tatami, and you'll be occasionally reminded, especially from me, that once upon a time, some of you might not have ever seen this before, but she can do this. But it doesn't really have a use, really. Or that she can do this. But also, doesn't really have a good practical use because you can't do anything when you clash the projectile. But yeah, let me know how you guys feel. That's basically what happened to the character, what some of the changes look like, and kind of where she's at. Despite the changes and how, I've seen quite a bit of dooming around this character, my matches have been going pretty fine. I feel like pretty good playing her. I do feel like her number one most important change is her 2S. I'll go into that in later detail, either on stream or in another video in some other breakdown or something on the character. This is a new version of the game, so I will probably actually try to make a beginner guide for this character for this season after a couple more weeks of playing her. As usual, if you guys have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. One of the easiest ways you can support me is over on Patreon at patreon.com/LordKnight. I do free videos basically every week. And in the paid section, we do early videos when I can, and I try to go behind the scenes, let you guys know what I'm planning and what's going on. If you're interested in fighting game coaching, I do that over on Metafy at metafy.gg/LordKnight. I also stream on weekdays at twitch.tv/LordKnight, and that's where I practice, play the game, and also do content for my second channel, Lord Knight Chronicles. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.